Many of you may, if you're got my color hair, remember our first bishop of our diocese, Bishop Paul Donovan. And one of the great gifts that Bishop Donovan had was to remember names. No matter when he met you, where it was, under whatever circumstances, if he saw you a short time afterwards or a long time afterwards, he'd remember your name. He just had that incredible gift. And I think part of that gift that he had was also a theology, if you wish, that he possessed, that the human name is important. And so he wanted to speak of the dignity and give you that honor to hear your name used when he addressed you. Today we hear in the gospel Jesus being given a name. We know at his birth he was given a name, and at his annunciation of his birth, the name Jesus. But today, at his baptism, he's given this name. This is my beloved Son with whom I am well pleased. That he is identified clearly as the Son of God. In being the Son of God, there's an expectation that he will live his life teaching and proclaiming the values of Jesus. And we heard there's values mentioned in the readings that we had earlier, that he came to bring light to darkness, healing to the sick. One of the beautiful ministries that we have here at Our Lady of the Lake is the Stephen Ministry, which is a ministry of outreach to people who may be experiencing darkness. Might be the darkness of an illness. It might be the darkness of a separation. It might be the darkness of isolation and loneliness. It might be the darkness of a bad experience. And what this wonderful mystery seeks to do is to accompany those individuals by being a careful, loving listener and one who can bring good news. And that's our call from baptism, to bring good news to all peoples. And so today, we're honoring in a special way two individuals who will be called to this ministry of Stephen Ministry. And Carol Swope has done this ministry for several years. And I've asked her today to share a little bit of that. And then she will install those new ministers. She's a professional in this field. She's the one that has worked with them in training, and so it's only appropriate that she be the one to install them today. And so I'm going to ask Carol to come forth to share a little bit about this ministry, and then we'll have the installation of these two new ministers. You moved. You scared me. I thought you were not coming up.
I didn't mean to scare you. I want to thank Padre for giving us the time to share our Stephen Ministry with you as we prepare this weekend to commission two beloved sons and daughters into our program. For more than 26 years, I've been involved in Stephen Ministry in one way or another. After going through 80 hours of training and commissioning, I didn't really fully know what I was getting myself into. But this ministry has become my mission and passion. Christ caring for people through people is a good description of who we are. It is God who gives Stephen Ministry its power. We are the caregivers, while God is the cure giver. He brings his love and power into each caring relationship that we're privileged to support. We are not the fixers, but rather help our care receivers find their own answers by listening, offering support, and care. We're part of an international ministry reaching out with more than 12,000 congregations and communities, not only across the country, but around the world. Our Stephen ministers are not just from Our Lady of the Lake, but we've included St. Mary's Parish in Niles as and have ministers and support from their parish as well. We're bound to strict codes of conduct and confidentiality, respecting boundaries and often speaking the truth in love. But most importantly, we are there to allow God to work through us to do what He needs to do in our care receivers' lives. We simply don't always have the answers, and I tell my Stephen ministers, you're not going to have the answers. But it's amazing to see and hear what God does as we serve our care receivers. As I mentioned earlier, confidentiality is our hallmark. The identity of those receiving care and everything they discuss with Stephen ministers always remains completely private. Even our phone line is private. The number is dedicated so that only I can answer it. And you can find it in the bulletin next to my name, or on our parish website, or on our Stephen ministry materials. Like others, the Stephen ministers that we're commissioning have completed 50 hours of training and are now required to attend ongoing monthly supervision and continuing education. They'll become caring friends who listen to, pray for, and support and encourage their care receivers, always women to women, men to men, for as long as they're needed. Some are short in time together, others are lengthy, but it's up to God to figure out and to work through those issues. Care receivers come to us from all walks of life, whether parishioners or community members or members of other churches. We have supplied a Stephen minister to the Edwardsburg Food Pantry 1 day a week for the last year. Care receivers are dealing with a vast array of issues. The obvious ones like grief, loss, illness, that's always a part of what we do to help with. But we also help those with spiritual struggles, family, relationship problems, separation and divorce, life changes, aging issues, loneliness or discouragement, loss of hope, and many other life challenges. It's important to note that Stephen ministers are not professional counselors, and some issues need the help of professional therapists. And for those, we refer to counseling with the option of adding a Stephen minister further down the road. So, how do you help? Or how do people find out about Stephen ministry? You are our greatest advertiser. By sharing our ministry to those within your circle of influence, your neighbors, your friends, a family member, co-workers, are all people that may need a Stephen minister at one time or another. Because of that, we ask that you equip yourself with a couple of our brochures, be familiar with what we do, and to share with someone who may need our support. If you have questions or may be struggling with an issue in your own life, give me a call, and we can set up a time to talk, perhaps over a cup of coffee. Maybe you've thought about becoming a Stephen minister and like to discuss the potential. Give me a call. Other ways you can be involved is to help us with our prayer blanket ministry, either by making them or providing materials. These blankets are available to anyone who is ill or going through a tough time. We've also supplied nearly 100 blankets to children in Child Protective Services throughout Southwest Michigan. Donate supplies we need to make our sunshine boxes that are distributed several times a year to our homebound. Help us monetarily so that we can purchase the Journey Through Grief books sent to families in our parish going through the loss of a loved one. But most of all, pray for our Stephen ministers and for those who we are serving. And as members of our parish, ask God how He can use you today to refresh the hearts of His people. It's been a blessing and an honor for me to work with so many of the members of our congregation and St. Mary's, and not only in training, but ongoing ministry. And today, we're going to commission two of our members, Paul Dieber and Cam Carroll, who I now invite to come forward for their commissioning.